Ave Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. When Jesus had finished all his words to the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave who was ill and about to die, and he was valuable to him. When he heard about Jesus, he sent elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and save the life of his slave. They approached Jesus and strongly urged him to come, saying, "He deserves to have you do this for him, for he loves our nation, and he built the synagogue for us." And Jesus went with them. But when he was only a short distance from the house, the centurion sent friends to tell him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you enter under my roof. Therefore, I did not consider myself worthy to come to you. But say the word, and let my servant be healed. For I too am a person subject to authority, with soldiers subject to me. And I say to one, go, and he goes. To another, come here, and he comes. And to my slave, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning said to the crowd following him, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When the messengers returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. The Gospel of the Lord. Well, the top 10 hits for sins that I hear about, anger towards civic officials is pretty high up there. Maybe like number 2 or 3. Okay? But so we have issues with civic officials, whatever side we're on, and yet we should be aware that we need to pray for them and not curse them. Cursing is not our job. It reminded me of, I'm telling you on secrecy, I have a New York Yankees hat that I wear because I want people to know that I love my enemies. And that's what the gospel tells us. St. Matthew, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So if you have issues with a particular political official or civic official, that's our mandate. To love them and pray for them. Whatever you say about your civic officials, especially those who are Catholic, even though we might have questions about their Catholicity, they're baptized and they're our brothers and sisters. And we pray for our brothers and sisters. And so Timothy, in the letter to Timothy, Paul says, pray for kings and for all in authority, that we may lead a quiet life in all devotion. In other words, praying for our civic officials, no matter how we feel about them, can be of great help in making our political situation of more peace. Everyone should be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. This is what it creates the atmosphere for. And so, in the gospel here today, a centurion who is technically an enemy of the people of Israel, but he's been beneficial to them. Why? Because you can see that there's a rapport between him and the Jewish community. These guys are praying for this centurion. And it created a peace between them. And so the centurion feels free to go to these Christians. He's a pagan. But because of these guys, he's going to be a believer in God now. Because of their prayers. He goes to them, he trusts them, and they petition God for him. They become intercessors for him. And it changes everything in his life. This is in this particular case, there was not a contention with the civic officials. There was a prayer for cooperation. If you want to get into a contention with civic officials, we can look at St. John Chrysostom, who's the saint of the day. St. John Chrysostom was not necessarily a great fan of his civic officials, and yet he did pray for them. But he was also very frank in telling them where they needed to change, and it caused him to be exiled on 2 occasions and spend some prison time. And so if we're going to do that, we have to take the consequences. Nevertheless, it's the challenge for prayer. I don't think we take seriously enough the power of prayer. Prayer in faith surely moves mountains. And persistent prayer is necessary, especially when moving civic officials. Because God does not violate anyone's freedom. Rather, he waits for a change of heart. And this is where prayer becomes important. It can be that which moves a heart to a deep conversion. Okay? So God waits for a change of heart where prayer over time makes hidden progress. And it will take root and produce fruit. And even if your least favorite civic official doesn't seem to be doing anything, he could experience conversion on his deathbed because of your prayers. Ask the good thief. He'll tell you. This morning as I was finishing my prayer time, I don't hear necessarily things, but in my mind, the voice of St. Faustina was crying out to me. So I just randomly opened her diary. And this is what I opened to kind of put a cap on this. This is God speaking to St. Faustina. I perform works of mercy in every soul. Not some souls, every soul. The gift of the greater sinner, the greater the sinner, the greater the right he has to my mercy. Wow. God is so good. My mercy is confirmed in every work of my hands. He who trusts in my mercy will not perish, for all his affairs are mine, and his enemies will be shattered at the base of my footstool. That's an interesting twist, because if someone comes to a conversion and somebody does violence against them, this implies that God may take some action. And yet, the pinnacle of this is the fact that God refuses mercy to no one. And we don't have the right to take away what God has given. And so we pray.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, benedicit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.